Nobody wanted this 95-pound Doberman named Atlas who sat in the corner of the shelter, watching family after family walk past his kennel with barely a glance. His deep brown eyes would follow every visitor, his tail making small, hopeful movements that became slower with each rejection. The shelter staff called him the Invisible Giant, a massive, muscular dog that somehow everyone looked right through. This is the story of how one tiny human changed everything for a dog the world had given up on. Atlas arrived at Riverside Animal Shelter on a cold February morning in 2023. He was 3 years old, weighing exactly 95 pounds of pure muscle and loyalty. His previous owner had surrendered him with a single sentence scrawled on the intake form: "Moving. Can't take him." No explanation, no goodbye, just abandonment. The shelter volunteers fell in love with him immediately. Atlas was gentle, house-trained, and knew basic commands. He would sit patiently during feeding time, never aggressive with other dogs, and his favorite thing in the world was having his ears scratched. "He's perfect," the volunteers would say. "Someone will adopt him within a week." They were wrong. Week 1 passed, then week 2. Families came and left. They'd read his breed, Doberman, and their faces would change. "Too intimidating," one mother said, pulling her children away. "My apartment doesn't allow big dogs," another couple explained, though they'd just been looking at a German Shepherd. The truth was simpler and harder. Atlas looked scary. His cropped ears, his size, his breed's reputation, it all worked against him. But here's what broke the volunteers' hearts. Every single person who actually spent time with Atlas wanted him. The problem? Nobody gave him that chance. And I have to ask you something important right now. If you're watching this story and you haven't subscribed yet, you're missing out on dozens of stories like Atlas's. These are real animals waiting for their second chance, and sharing their stories is how we help them. Hit that subscribe button. It takes 2 seconds and means everything to these dogs. Month 1 became month 2. Atlas developed a routine. He'd hear the front door open, stand up hopefully, wag his tail as footsteps approached. Then he'd watch people choose other dogs, smaller dogs, friendlier-looking dogs, and slowly his tail would stop wagging. He'd return to his corner, rest his massive head on his paws, and wait. The shelter tried everything. Professional photos showing Atlas being gentle, videos of him playing with toys, a Meet Atlas event where he performed every command perfectly. They reduced his adoption fee to 0. Nothing worked. And then came the truly heartbreaking part, his first return. A young man in his 20s adopted Atlas in March. The shelter staff celebrated. They took photos, gave Atlas extra treats, and believed his story was finally turning around. 72 hours later, the man brought him back. "My girlfriend doesn't like how he looks," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. Atlas walked back into his kennel like he'd never left, except now something in his eyes had dimmed. The second adoption lasted 5 days. Too energetic, they claimed, though the shelter notes showed Atlas was actually quite calm for a Doberman his age. The third adoption? 3 days. The family said he took up too much space. By the fourth return, something in Atlas had fundamentally changed. He stopped standing when people approached. He stopped wagging his tail. He just existed. "We're losing him," the shelter director, Maria, said during a staff meeting. "Not physically, but that spark, that hope, it's gone. He's been rejected so many times that he's given up." The volunteers tried harder. They posted Atlas's story on every social media platform. Local news did a segment on him. A famous dog trainer offered free lifetime training to whoever adopted him. Still, nobody came. Nobody wanted the 95-pound Doberman who'd been returned 4 times. The shelter had a policy. After 6 months without adoption, they'd have to consider their options. Atlas was approaching month 5. Then, on a Thursday afternoon in July, Sarah Chen walked into the shelter. She was 8 months pregnant, moving slowly, one hand supporting her lower back. She wasn't there to adopt. She was dropping off donations from her company's charity drive. But as she walked past the kennels, she noticed something. Every dog was at their gate, barking, jumping, seeking attention. Except one. In the far corner, a massive Doberman sat perfectly still, his back to the walkway, facing the wall. "What's wrong with that one?" Sarah asked. Maria hesitated. She'd learned to manage expectations. "That's Atlas. He's been here a while, been through a lot." Sarah moved closer. "Hey, buddy," she called softly. Atlas's ear twitched. Nothing else moved. "Hey, Atlas, want to say hi?" Slowly, as if it took every ounce of energy he had left, Atlas turned his head. He looked at Sarah with those deep brown eyes, eyes that had seen too much rejection, too much disappointment. And maybe it was her gentle voice. Maybe it was the fact that she didn't recoil at his size. Maybe it was something else entirely. But Atlas stood up, walked to the gate, and sat down properly, looking directly at her. "Can I meet him?" Sarah asked. What happened in that meeting room changed everything. Sarah sat down, not easy at 8 months pregnant, and Atlas approached cautiously. He sniffed her hand. Then, in a move that made Maria's eyes water, he gently placed his massive head on Sarah's belly and stayed there. When the baby kicked, Atlas's tail wagged for the first time in weeks. "My husband's gonna think I'm crazy," Sarah laughed through tears. "But I think this guy needs us. And honestly, I think we need him too." The adoption paperwork was completed that day. Sarah's husband, Michael, arrived skeptical. A Doberman with a newborn coming? But when he saw Atlas sitting calmly beside Sarah, how gentle he was despite his size, Michael's concerns melted away. Atlas went home that evening. No trial period, no hesitation. When baby Emma was born 6 weeks later, Atlas became her guardian. He would sleep beside her crib, his breathing matching hers. When she cried, he'd alert Sarah before she even heard the monitor. As Emma learned to crawl, then walk, Atlas was always there, a gentle giant who'd found his purpose. The dog nobody wanted became the dog one family couldn't imagine life without. Sarah often posts updates, Atlas and Emma napping together, Atlas patiently being used as a pillow, Atlas sitting guard while Emma plays. And with each photo, she adds the same caption. "This is the dog 4 families gave up on. This is the dog nobody wanted, and he's everything we needed." So here's my question for you. How many Atlas stories are happening right now in your local shelter? How many perfect animals are being overlooked because of their breed, their size, their appearance? Would you have walked past Atlas, or would you have given him a chance?